In the beginning of this chapter, we talked about what can a person do with money. Well, I really kind of limited it to two options. We can spend it or we can save it. And towards the beginning of some of these past lessons, we talked about like the savings function and the consumption function. Well, now we're going to start diving into something a little bit different. And that's something that's a little bit different is investments. And we're going to talk about planned investment. You see, investment is another way to spend some money. But hopefully with an investment, you actually make money off of that particular consumption. Whenever you're spending money on investments, you're doing that to try to increase your profit in the long run. So businesses often invest, and a business investment is an investment or the purchase of new capital goods such as a new building or a new equipment that they're going to use to try and increase their profits. Also, a business investment would be a net addition to inventories, meaning they're increasing their inventories. They're buying more to increase their inventories. And what we need to know also is that a household investment is when a household buys a new residence. Whenever a household buys a new house, a new condominium, something like that, or buys a new house or a new residence, that is also known as a household investment. But that is the only type of investment that a household is going to pertain to or partake in. So, the level of investment is actually determined in part by the market rate of interest. So think about it this way. Most, or not most, but a lot of times whenever a company goes out to buy a new good, like say buy a new building, maybe they're going to spend, I don't know, $5 million on a brand new building. Are they just going to pull $5 million out of cash reserves? Sometimes they might. Other times they might actually take out a loan. So whenever you take out a loan, you get charged interest. So this interest, this market rate of interest will actually determine your additional level of cost. So think about it this way. You take out a $500,000 loan or say a $5 million loan and you have a high interest rate, and by the time it's all said and done, you're paying over $1 million in interest. Well, that $5 million building just cost you $6 million. So the amount of buildings and the amount of equipment that you're going to buy, well, yeah, that interest rate affects it. It is definitely going to affect it because the higher the interest rate, the higher the cost, and the less likely you are to buy that particular investment. Because for you to buy an investment or for you to engage in an investment, you're expecting it to make you money in the long run. And the higher the cost, the less likely you're going to make money off of that. Households fall in that same category. Whenever a household or a consumer goes and buys a brand new house, well, if that house costs them more than what it would for them to rent for in the long run, then they might actually just rent for the whole time. Or vice versa, if the house is less, if the buying a new house is going to cost them less than what it would be to rent in the long run, they're going to buy a new house. But as long as that interest rate keeps going up, or the higher the interest rate, the more that house costs, and the less likely that household is to invest in that new house. So then we have this economist, an economist by the name of John Maynard Keynes. He's known for saying that inducement to invest depends partly on the investment schedule and partly on the interest rate. Well, we've already talked about why and how the interest rate will affect the decision to take on investments up here. Because the higher the interest rate, the higher the cost associated with that particular investment, especially if you're taking out a loan, and the higher the cost, the less likely you are to take out that particular investment. But what is this investment schedule that John Maynard Keynes spoke of? So the investment schedule is actually this investment demand schedule over here. So an investment demand schedule is a investment expenditure plan of businesses and households. Basically, how much are businesses and households planning on spending on investments, and that it corresponds with a specific rate of interest. Basically what it's saying is this investment demand schedule is how much are you willing to buy at a set of alternate interest rates. For example, are you willing to pay, say, $20,000 at an interest rate of 9%? whereas you might be willing to pay say $50,000 at an interest rate of 3%. So what it's doing is it's saying how much on the whole, in a whole economy, are businesses and households planning on to invest at different rates of interest. So then after that, if we kind of know that, we can actually come up with this planned investment function. Just like we've had the consumption function and the savings function, we also have this planned investment function. And that planned investment function, lo and behold, kind of looks pretty similar to what we've seen in the past. This little I, that I means level of investment expenditures. That makes sense. We're trying to figure out how much investment we're going to have in this economy, so that's what is on one side of our equation. So that I means investment expenditures. The AI, whereas in a lot of cases it might mean artificial intelligence or artificial insemination in the agricultural world, here it means the level of autonomous investment. So what is autonomous investment? Well, it's just like autonomous consumption. Autonomous investment is the level of investment that would occur at an interest rate of 0. So again, the autonomous level of investment is the amount of investment that would occur if the interest rate or the market rate of interest was 0. So let's say there's no interest whatsoever. This is the total amount that households and businesses would invest. So then you also have this nice little MIS. So the MIS stands for Marginal Investment Sensitivity of the households and businesses. So I know I just wrote of households, but it should be households and businesses. So the marginal investment sensitivity is it's saying how sensitive is a business or household to the interest rate. If the interest rate is real high, how is that going to affect total number of investments or vice versa? So in this last little symbol R means the market rate of interest, or our interest rate. So again, our investment function is the interest rate, or is the investment is equal to this autonomous investment, or the investment if the interest rate was 0, minus this marginal investment sensitivity, how sensitive are we to the interest rate, times the interest rate. So we notice that we're going to have an inverse relationship occurs between the rate of interest and the planned level of investment. We have an inverse relationship, basically meaning that as interest rate goes up, investment is actually going to fall. It's an inverse relationship. So, and we know that because of this little negative sign, this minus sign right here, meaning that as interest rates go up, it's actually going to make this whole equation, that whole part of that equation, more negative, meaning our investment comes down. So there is this inverse relationship between the rate of interest and the planned level of consumption. So what exactly is an investment expenditure? Well, we talked about it a little bit and we broke it down and saying it might be new buildings or new equipment for businesses. We said it could also be net additions to inventories. Or for a household, it could be like something like a new residence. Well, let's dive into it just a little bit more. So investment expenditures might be in fixed investments in business assets. This is our buildings. This is our equipment. These are fixed investments, meaning that they're there. You're buying them for long term. You also have business inventories, just like what we said up here, net additions to business inventories. That is also part of these investment expenditures. You also have new homes sold to new individuals, or new homes sold to individuals. So whenever we classify a household, and we classify a household as, or the household investment of a new residence as an investment, the reason that we're doing that is because we say that the homeowners are businesses who actually rent the houses from themselves. That's kind of weird to say, that you bought a house but yet you're renting it from yourself. Well, the reason you do that, or the reason we say that, is because if you're renting it from yourself, or if you bought a new house, you're not renting from somebody else. which means you're basically taking that money that you would have been placing in rent for somebody else and paying it back to yourself in a sense. So therefore, we are treating these homeowners as individuals, as individual businesses who rent from themselves. And just like what we talked about up here, whenever we're talking about the interest rate, we said that you're only going to rent, or you're going to buy if it is better or more profitable than if you rented. So if you are renting in the long run. So if that's the case, then it's logical to say that what we're doing is we're trying to make a comparison to see if we continued to rent or if we bought the house, which one we're better off. So this little phrase, homeowners or businesses who rent the houses from themselves, allow us to evaluate that on a more accurate scale.